The Vec Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They had conquered 600 worlds. They had crushed every species that tried to fight back. In all their history, no one had ever said no to them and lived. Emperor Karn sat on his throne made of black metal. His gray scales shined under the purple lights of his palace. His eyes were yellow and cold, like a snake. He was old even by Vec standards. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched stars die. Nothing surprised him anymore. A messenger walked into the throne room. He bowed low, his tail touching the floor. "Great Emperor," the messenger said, "our probes have found a new world. It sits on the edge of the galaxy. The creatures there call it Earth." Karn did not move. "What do we know about them?" "They are weak, my lord. They have only reached their own moon. They still burn dead plants for energy. Their weapons use simple explosions. They fight each other constantly. They are barely worth our time." Karn smiled. His teeth were sharp and yellow. "Another primitive species. How boring. Send Admiral Roth. Tell him to take 40 ships. That should be more than enough." The messenger bowed again and left. Admiral Roth was a legend among the Vec. He had conquered 600 worlds without ever losing a single battle. His scales were dark red, scarred from countless fights. He was cruel and smart. He enjoyed watching weaker species beg for mercy. When he received the Emperor's orders, he laughed. 40 ships for one small planet, he said to his officers. "The Emperor honors these creatures too much. I could take this world with 5 ships and still have time for dinner." His officers laughed with him. They had heard stories about humans. Soft skin, no claws, no armor. They could not even breathe underwater. They died from small falls. They needed machines just to survive in space. This would be easy. The fleet left Vec space 3 days later. 40 massive warships, each one carrying enough firepower to burn a continent. They moved through the darkness between stars, jumping through space like stones skipping across water. On Earth, no one knew they were coming. Taeho was 28 years old. He worked in the South Korean Space Defense Command, a secret facility buried deep under a mountain. His job was to watch the sky. He looked for asteroids, satellites, and space debris. It was boring work, but he was good at it. That night he saw something strange. "Lieutenant Hannah," he called to the woman at the next station. "Come look at this." Hannah walked over. She was 32, with short black hair and tired eyes. She had worked in this bunker for 5 years. She had never seen anything interesting, until now. "What is that?" she whispered. On Taeho's screen, 40 objects moved toward Earth. They were too big to be asteroids. They moved too fast to be natural, and they were slowing down. "I don't know," Taeho said. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. "But they're not ours." He picked up the phone and called General Day 1. Day 1 was 60 years old. He had fought in 2 wars and had seen things that still gave him nightmares. But when he looked at Taeho's data, he felt a fear he had never known before. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Yes, sir. They will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. Day 1 closed his eyes. For a moment, he was not a general. He was just a man, a grandfather, a human being facing the end of everything he knew. Then he opened his eyes. "Contact every major government. Tell them we have visitors. And tell them to prepare for the worst." 6 hours later, the Vec fleet appeared above Earth. People around the world looked up and saw the ships. They were huge, bigger than cities, blocking out the sun. They hung in the sky like dark clouds, silent and terrible. Then Admiral Roth spoke. His voice came through every radio, every television, every phone on the planet. It was deep and cold, like the voice of death itself. "Creatures of this world, you are now property of the Vec Empire. Your planet, your resources, and your lives belong to us. You have 1 rotation of your world to surrender completely. If you resist, we will burn your cities. If you fight, we will end your species. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The message ended. Every screen on Earth went black. In the Korean bunker, no one spoke. Hannah was crying silently. Other officers stared at their screens with empty eyes. Some prayed. Some just sat there, frozen. Tejo looked at General Day One. "Sir," he said quietly, "what do we do?" Day One did not answer right away. He walked to the window and looked at the screens showing the alien ships. They were so big, so powerful. Humanity had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries. They had imagined friendly visitors, wise teachers, peaceful explorers. Not this, not conquerors. But as Day One stared at those ships, something changed inside him. The fear did not go away, but something else grew beside it. Something hot and hard. Anger. Humans had survived ice ages. They had survived plagues. They had survived 2 world wars and come back stronger every time. They had split atoms and walked on the moon. They had built weapons that could destroy their own world 10 times over. And now these aliens thought they could just take everything? Day One turned to face his officers. "Contact every military command on Earth," he said. His voice was steady now. "Tell them we need to talk. All of us. Every country. Every army. Every weapon, sir." Hannah wiped her eyes. "What are you planning?" Day One looked at the ships on the screen. "Those things up there think we're weak. They think we'll surrender because we're scared. They've never met humans before. They don't know what we are." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let's show them." For 3 days, Earth said nothing to the Vec. Admiral Roth watched the planet from his command ship. He expected to see surrender signals within hours. He expected human leaders to beg for mercy, to offer their resources, their people, their everything. That was how it always happened. Every species they conquered reacted the same way. Fear, then despair, then submission. But the humans were silent. Strange Roth said to his second officer, "They have not responded to our message." "Perhaps they are too primitive to understand, Admiral." Roth shook his head. "No, they understood. Look at their cities. There is chaos. Their people are running. Their markets have collapsed. They are afraid." He leaned back in his chair and smiled. "They are probably fighting among themselves, deciding who will surrender first. Give them time. They will break." He was partly right. On Earth, there was chaos. When the alien message played, billions of people panicked. Some ran to churches and temples. Some emptied stores and hid in their homes. Some took to the streets, screaming and crying. Governments tried to keep order, but it was impossible. The world was falling apart, but beneath the chaos, something else was happening. In a secret bunker under Switzerland, the leaders of every major nation gathered. Americans sat next to Russians. Chinese generals shook hands with Indian officers. Old enemies looked at each other and saw something new. They were not enemies. Anymore they were humans. General Day One stood at the front of the room. Behind him, screens showed the alien ships still floating above. Earth. He looked at the faces before him. Presidents, generals, scientists. The most powerful people on the planet, and they were all scared. "We have 72 hours, Day One said. Maybe less. After that, they will attack. They will burn our cities. They will kill millions. And they will not stop until we are all dead or enslaved." A Russian general spoke up. "Can we fight them?" "Their technology is far beyond ours," Yes, Day One said. "Their technology is better. Their ships are stronger. Their weapons are more powerful. If we fight them the way we fight each other, we will lose." He paused. "But we are not going to fight them that way." He pressed a button and the screens changed. They showed files that had been secret for decades. Projects that no government had ever admitted existed. Project Blackout. Project Hammer. Project Last Light. A British officer leaned forward. "What are these?" "Weapons," Day One said simply. "Weapons we built to fight each other. Weapons so terrible that we agreed to never use them. But we never destroyed them." Captain Yuna stepped forward. She was young for someone in her position. Only 35, but she was the best cyber. Warfare expert in Asia. She had spent the last 48 Ours doing something no one thought possible. We cracked there. Communications, she said. The room went silent. Impossible, an American scientist said. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Eunice smiled slightly. Their technology is advanced, yes, but they are arrogant. They never expected anyone to try. Their encryption is strong, but it follows patterns. We found the patterns. We broke them. She pulled up new data on the screens. Their shields are energy-based. They can stop lasers, plasma, anything that carries heat. But they are weak against solid objects moving at high speed. They never developed defenses against kinetic weapons because no species they conquered ever used them. Daewon nodded. Humanity has been throwing rocks at each other since the beginning. We never stopped. We just got better at it. A Chinese general stood up. What exactly are you suggesting? Daewon looked at him. We hit them fast. We hit them hard. We give them no time to react. And we make sure not a single one of those ships survives. The room erupted in argument. Some said it was suicide. Others said surrender was the only option. A few suggested sending a message to negotiate. Toho watched from the back of the room. He was the lowest-ranking person there, but Daewon had insisted he come. He had ideas, Daewon said. Good ideas now. Taeho stepped forward. May I speak, sir? The room quieted. The generals and presidents looked at this young Korean officer with confusion. Go ahead, Daewon, said Tate. Walk to the main screen. They expect us to be scared. They expect us to surrender or to fight badly. They don't know about our history. They don't know that humans have been killing each other for 10,000 years. They don't know about our wars, our bombs, our hate. He pulled up an image of the alien command ship. Their fleet works like a hive. The command ship controls everything. Destroy it, and the other ships lose coordination. They become confused. They become targets. How do we destroy it? The American president asked. Taeho smiled. We have weapons hidden in places they'll never expect. Kinetic missiles in underground silos. Nuclear-powered lasers hidden among space debris. Antimatter warheads floating in the asteroid belt. We put them there years ago in case we ever went to war with each other. He looked around the room. We never used them on ourselves, but we can use them now. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Russian president stood up. I agree, he said simply. The Chinese leader nodded. So do I. One by one, every leader in the room agreed. For the first time in human history, the entire world was united. Not by hope, not by friendship, but by a shared enemy and a shared anger. Lieutenant Hannah, watching from the communications station, felt tears in her eyes again. But this time, they were not tears of fear. Daewon looked at his officers. We have less than 24 hours. Let's get to work. In orbit, Admiral Roth continued to wait. He had no idea that below him, the most dangerous species in the galaxy was preparing to strike back. He would find out soon enough. On the fourth day, Admiral Roth decided that waiting was over. He stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking down at Earth through the massive window. The blue planet floated peacefully in the darkness of space. Its cities glowed at night like tiny stars. Its oceans sparkled in the sunlight. Soon, it would all belong to the Vec. Admiral, his communications officer said, the landing forces are ready. Shall I give the order? Roth nodded slowly. Send 12 ships to their largest cities: Seoul, New York, Beijing, Moscow, London. Show them what happens when primitives refuse to answer their masters. The 12 ships broke formation and began descending toward Earth. Their engines burned bright blue against the black sky. Inside each ship, thousands of Vec soldiers prepared for battle. They carried plasma rifles that could melt steel. They wore armor that could stop bullets. They were excited. Conquest was their favorite game. In the bunker under the Korean mountain, alarms screamed. They're moving. Hannah shouted. 12 ships breaking orbit. General Daewon stood calmly at the center of the room. Around him, Officers worked at their stations with focused intensity. They had practiced this moment for 3 days. They were ready. Where are they heading? Day 1 asked. Major cities? They'll reach Seoul in 8 minutes. Daho looked up from his screen. Sir, if we're going to do this, we need to do it now. Day 1 took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would decide everything. If they failed, humanity would be destroyed. If they succeeded, nothing would ever be the same. He pressed the button on his console. All stations. This is General Day 1. Execute Operation Thunder. I repeat, execute Operation Thunder. Across 6 continents, hundreds of missile silos opened their doors. The missiles inside were not like normal missiles. They carried no explosives. Instead, they held tungsten rods, each one 5 meters long and 30 centimeters wide. Simple metal, nothing more. But these rods were about to move very, very fast. 300 missiles launched at the same time. They screamed into the sky, their engines pushing them faster and faster. Within seconds, they broke through the atmosphere. Within minutes, they reached speeds of 18 times the speed of sound. At those speeds, solid metal became the most destructive force in the universe. Admiral Roth saw the launches on his tactical display. He laughed. Missiles. How primitive. Raised shields. Shields were the best in the Vec Empire. They could stop any energy weapon ever created. Lasers bounced off them like light off a mirror. Plasma dispersed harmlessly against their surface. No weapon had ever broken through, but the Vec shields were designed to stop energy, not matter. The first tungsten rod hit a Vec ship, traveling at 20,000 kilometers per hour. The shield flickered for a moment, confused. It was trying to disperse heat, but there was no heat. There was only a metal bar moving faster than the ship's computers could. Understand, the rod punched through the shield like a needle through paper. It hit the ship's hull and kept going. It tore through the armor, through the decks, through the engine room. The ship did not explode. It simply broke apart, pieces scattering in every direction. Then the second rod hit. And the third, and the fourth. Admiral Roth watched in horror as 12 of his ships vanished in less than 30 seconds. What is happening? He screamed. What are those weapons? His officers had no answers. Their screens showed impossible data. Simple metal rods moving at impossible speeds. No heat signatures. No energy readings. Just mass and velocity, physics at its most basic, and its most deadly. Admiral, an officer shouted, our communications are down. We can't reach the homeworld. In Seoul, Captain Yuna watched her screens fill with green lights. Jamming successful, she reported. Their subspace communications are completely blocked. They can't call for help. Day 1 nodded. Phase 1 complete. Launch Phase 2. On the dark side of Earth, hidden among old satellites and space junk, 17 objects came to life. They had been floating there for 20 years. Officially, they did not exist. They were nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers. Weapons so powerful that humanity had banned them in the 2030s. They were designed to destroy entire cities in a single blast. But they had never been destroyed. Just hidden. Just in case. Now they powered up for the first time. The lasers fired in perfect unison. Invisible beams of concentrated radiation cut through space at the speed of light. They hit the Vec ships before the aliens even knew they were under attack. Extras do not care about shields. They pass through energy barriers like sunlight through glass. They reach the hull, the armor, the electronics inside. They fry circuits. They ignite fuel. They turn metal into plasma. 6 more Vec ships died in 3 seconds, Admiral. Roth grabbed his command chair as his ship shook from a nearby explosion. Retreat, he screamed. All ships, retreat. But there was nowhere to retreat to. From the asteroid belt, a cloud of contacts appeared on the Vec sensors. 500 objects? Each one moving toward the fleet at incredible speed. They were the antimatter warheads that Taeho had mentioned. Humanity's most terrible weapons. They had been hidden in the asteroids for decades, waiting for a war that never came. Now they had a target. Roth watched the warheads approach. His ship's weapons fired desperately, destroying dozens of them. But there were too many. Far too many. How? He whispered. They're primitives. They can't have weapons like this. The first warhead hit his flagship. In the moment before everything ended, Admiral Roth finally understood. Humans were not primitive. They were different. They had spent thousands of years learning to kill. They had turned murder into a science, and war into an art, and he had made them angry. The antimatter explosion was silent in space, but it was bright enough to be seen from Earth. A second sun appeared in the sky, burning white and pure. Then it faded, and the Vec fleet was gone in the Korean bunker. Hannah checked her instruments 3 times before she believed them. All enemy ships destroyed, she said, her voice shaking. Time from first strike to complete elimination, 14 minutes. The room was silent. Then someone started crying. Someone else laughed. Officers hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. But General Daewon did not celebrate. He looked at the empty space where 40 warships had been. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. They'll send more. And next time, they won't underestimate us. Taeho stood beside him. Then we'll be ready, sir. Daewon nodded slowly. Yes, we will. The world woke up to silence. For 4 days, the alien ships had hung in the sky like dark clouds. Every person on Earth had lived in fear, waiting for the end. Children hid under their beds. Parents held their families close. Old people prayed. Young people screamed. And then, in 14 minutes, it was over. People looked up at the sky and saw nothing. The ships were gone. The nightmare had ended. At first, no one believed it. They thought it was a trick. They thought the aliens were hiding, waiting to strike. But hours passed. The sky remained empty. Slowly, the truth spread across the world. Earth had fought back. Earth had won in the Korean bunker. The celebration had stopped. The officers sat at their stations, exhausted and dazed. They had not slept in 3 days. They had just destroyed 40 alien warships. And none of them knew what to feel. Hannah stared at her blank screens. Her hands were still shaking. I can't believe it worked, she whispered. I keep expecting to wake up. Taeho sat beside her. His eyes were red from staring at data for so long. It worked, he said. We did it. We actually did it. But his voice was not happy. It was heavy with something else. Something darker. Captain Yuna walked over to them. She carried 3 cups of coffee. She handed them out without speaking, then sat down. I've been thinking, she said quietly, about what we just did. Hannah took a sip of coffee. We saved the world. Yes, Yuna nodded. But we also killed thousands of living beings in 14 minutes. We used weapons that we swore we would never use. We showed the universe exactly what humans are capable of. The room fell silent. General Daewon heard her words from across the room. He walked over slowly, his boots clicking on the metal floor. You're right, he said. We did something terrible today. Those Vex soldiers had families too. They had hopes and dreams. And we destroyed them without mercy. He paused. But they came here to enslave us. To kill us. To take everything we have. We did not ask for this war. We did not want this war. But when it came, we fought, and we won. He looked at his officers. Never forget what we did today. Never forget the lives we took. That weight should stay with us forever. But also never forget why we did it. We fought for our children, for our future, for humanity itself. Taeho stood up slowly. Sir, what happens now? Daewon sighed. Now we prepare. The Vec Empire has ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. They will not accept this defeat. They will come back. When? Hannah asked. I don't know, months, maybe years. But they will come. He turned to Yuna. Can we use their communications? Can we learn more about them? Yuna nodded. We captured everything. Their language, their history, their technology. We know where their homeworld is. We know how many ships they have. We know their weaknesses. Good. Day One's eyes hardened. Then we have time to prepare. Outside the bunker, the world was changing. The news spread fast. Governments released videos of the battle. People watched in shock as human missiles destroyed alien ships. They saw the tungsten rods hit. They saw the X-ray lasers fire. They saw the antimatter explosions light up the sky, and they realized something that changed everything. Humanity was not alone in the universe. There were other species out there, powerful and dangerous. And Earth had just made itself a target, but humans had also proven something else. They had proven that they could fight. They could win. They could protect themselves against any enemy, no matter how advanced. Fear turned to pride. Pride turned to determination. Around the world, old conflicts faded. Countries that had been enemies for centuries began working together. Russia and America shared military secrets. China and Japan built ships side by side. The Middle East and the West put aside their differences. For the first time in history, humanity was truly united. New projects began. Factories that built cars now built missiles. Scientists who studied diseases now studied alien technology. Engineers who designed phones now designed weapons. Earth was preparing for war. In the Korean bunker, Taeho worked day and night studying the captured Vec data. He learned their language. He mapped their empire. He identified their weaknesses, and he discovered something important. "Sir," he told Day one evening, "the Vec have conquered hundreds of species, but they've never destroyed one completely. They always leave survivors to use as slaves." Day One frowned. "Why does that matter?" "Because those slaves hate the Vec. They've been waiting for someone to fight back. They've been waiting for hope." Taeho pulled up a star map. "If we can contact them, if we can show them what we did, we won't be alone anymore. We could have allies." Day One stared at the map. Hundreds of conquered worlds. Hundreds of enslaved species, all of them suffering under the Vec Empire. "Want to start a revolution?" he said. Taeho nodded. "The Vec ruled because no one could fight them. But we proved that they can be beaten. If other species see that, if they believe that, everything changes." Daewon finished the thought. He stood in silence for a long moment. "Do it," he finally said. "Find a way to contact them. Show them what we did. Give them hope." Taeho smiled for the first time in days. "Yes, sir." Far away in the Vec homeworld, Emperor Karn received the terrible news. His finest admiral was dead. 40 of his best ships were destroyed. A primitive species on the edge of the galaxy had done the impossible. Karn sat on his throne, his yellow eyes burning with rage. "Send another fleet," he commanded. "Send 100 ships. Send 1,000. I want that planet burned. I want every human dead." His generals bowed and hurried to obey. But as they left, Karn felt something he had not felt in 1,000 years. Fear, because for the first time in history, someone had fought back. Someone had won. And if one species could do it, maybe others could too. The Vec Empire had ruled for 12,000 years. But empires, like stars, eventually die, and Earth had just lit the first fire. 3 months passed after the battle. Earth changed faster than anyone thought possible. New weapons were built every day. New ships rose from factories around the world. Scientists worked without rest, studying alien technology and making it their own. But the greatest change was not in weapons or ships. It was in people. Humans had always been divided. By borders. By languages. By skin color. By religion. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other over small pieces of land and small differences in belief. Now, all of that seemed foolish. There was a galaxy out there full of species that wanted to enslave them. Compared to that, the differences between humans seemed very small indeed. A new organization was created, the United Earth Defense Force. Every country contributed soldiers, scientists, and resources. Old enemies trained together. Old flags flew beside new ones. The world had become one. And at the center of it all was a woman named Nari. She was 42 years old. She had been a diplomat before the invasion, working quietly in international relations. She spoke 12 languages. She understood people in a way that others found almost magical. She could walk into a room full of angry enemies and walk out with them shaking hands. When Earth's leaders decided they needed someone to speak for humanity, they chose her, Ambassador Nari, the voice of Earth. Her first job was the hardest. She had to send a message to the Vec Empire, a message that would make them think twice before attacking again. She recorded it in a small studio, standing in front of a simple blue background. She wore a plain gray suit. Her black hair was tied back. Her face was calm and serious. The message would travel across the stars on a small probe, moving faster than light toward Vec space. It would take 3 weeks to arrive. Nari looked into the camera and began to speak. Emperor Karn, my name is Nari. I speak for Earth and for the human species. 3 months ago, your fleet entered our solar system. Your admiral demanded our surrender. He threatened to burn our cities and enslave our people. She paused. He failed. In the Vec Palace, Emperor Karn watched the message with cold eyes. His advisors stood around him, nervous and afraid. They had never seen anything like this. No conquered species had ever spoken to them as equals, Nari continued. 40 ships. Gone in 14 minutes? Your Admiral Roth is dead. His fleet is scattered atoms, floating in our sky. We regret the loss of life. We take no joy in killing. But we will never apologize for defending our home. Karn's claws dug into his throne. How dare she, he hissed. How dare this primitive creature address me this way? But his advisors said nothing. They were too afraid. On the recording, Nari's voice remained steady. We have studied your communications. We have learned your language. We have mapped your empire. We know you have ruled this region of space for 12,000 years. We know you have never lost a war. She leaned forward slightly. That has changed. Karn stood up from his throne. Enough. Send another fleet. 100 ships. 1,000. Burn that planet to ash. But before his generals could respond, the message continued. I know what you are thinking, Emperor. You are thinking about revenge. You are planning to send a larger fleet. Perhaps you have already sent one. Nari smiled. It was not a warm smile. 14 minutes ago, a second Vec fleet entered our solar system. 120 ships this time. They lasted 11 minutes. The throne room went silent. Karn looked at his generals. Their faces were pale. One of them stepped forward slowly. She speaks the truth, Emperor. We have lost contact with the second fleet. All 120 ships. Gone. Karn sat back down. For the first time in his long life, he did not know what to do. Nari's message continued. We do not want war, Emperor. We did not ask you to come to our world. We did not threaten your empire. We were living peacefully on our small planet, and you decided to make us slaves. You made a mistake. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Karn. Humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other. Every weapon you have seen was built to kill other humans. Our history is written in blood. We invented war before we invented writing. We created weapons that could destroy our own world 10 times over. She paused. And what you have seen so far is only a fraction of what we can do. In the Korean bunker, General Daewon watched the recording with his officers. Taeho stood beside him, his arms crossed. Do you think they'll listen? Taeho asked. Daewon shook his head. I don't know, but they'll think twice. That's all we can ask for. On the screen, Nari delivered her final words. Here is what will happen now, Emperor. You will not enter human space again. You will release all the species you have enslaved, and you will accept that the galaxy is no longer yours alone. She stood straight. If you ignore this warning, we will not wait for you to attack. We will come to you. We will find your homeworld, and we will do to your cities what you plan to do to ours. Her voice dropped. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. But if a single Vex ship crosses into our territory again, 14 minutes will feel like mercy. The transmission ended. Emperor Karn sat in silence. His advisors waited for orders, but none came. Finally, one brave general spoke. "What should we do, Emperor?" Karn stared at the blank screen where Nera's face had been. "Nothing," he said quietly. "We do nothing. For now." It was the first time in 12,000 years that the Vec Empire had backed down. Across the galaxy, other species heard about what happened. Slaves who had served the Vec for centuries whispered to each other. Stories spread from world to world. The humans had won. Earth had stood, alone against the greatest empire in history, and survived. A primitive species with chemical weapons and metal rods had destroyed the undefeatable Vec fleet. If they could do it, maybe others could too. On 100 worlds, hope began to grow, and on Earth, Nari stood at a window, looking up at the stars. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. She was right. Humanity had taken its first step into the galaxy. They had made enemies. They had made the universe afraid, but they had also made something else. They had made themselves ready. The stars were waiting, and Earth was coming.